call it the oil. Gracious.
That's what I'm talking about. That's taking charge right there,
Carries a
baby.
big stick over there, doesn't it?
Good afternoon and welcome. This afternoon we have the Finance Committee meeting. Today is March 5th, 12:02 p.m. Ms. McCluster, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Height?
Here.
Mr. Dudley?
Present.
Mr. Whittle?
Here.
Mr. Tucker?
Here. Thank you. Are there any items to be added to the agenda?
No, sir.
No items are added. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Height, second by Mr. Whittle to approve the agenda. You may vote. I assume it's approved. Thank you. All right, moving to 5A, under new business is going to be our FY 2025 county budget discussion. Let me say to my colleagues, gentlemen, please, if you would be so kind to, so that we are orderly, recognize the chair and you will be given an opportunity to speak. We're going to ask Mr. Terrell, County Administrator, come forward and to kick off this meeting, and then I believe we're going to turn it over to Ms. Vanderhyde.
Okay, let's get started again. This is the next round of the budget. Let's see if we can wrap up a number of long-standing, or not long-standing, but issues that we've been discussing since the last meeting. Let me do a quick budget overview, similar to what we did at the last meeting. Now, the goal of the budget, let's not lose sight of what this is about. The goal of this budget is to provide the correct level of service that our citizens expect of us now, but also to plan for the future. At a tax rate that we understand, given the 48% increase in property values, adjusts for the large increase. We want to find that balance. That's the right balance between today and the future, while respecting the citizens' hard-earned tax dollar. Now, we've reviewed all the department requests. We've made as many reductions as professionally, as we deem professionally prudent, based on the actual costs. We've looked at the history of the actual costs so we could pare down and understand separate what's the want from what's been used historically as needed. So, as per our original budget instruction to the staff, there's no wish list. There's nothing that would qualify as not necessary to the health of the organization or the community going forward. This budget is as lean as we can make it. The philosophy we're using is every tax dollar has a higher standard and it must be justified. There's no give me this, give me that. We needed the justification that we've asked hard questions of staff. Nobody wants more taxes. Nobody wants more taxes. We should be as lean and as efficient as possible and respect the citizens' hard-earned tax dollar. So what this budget is, after 5 months of hard work, is the balance between reducing taxes, but yet thinking to the future growth of the organization and the community. Where we want to be in 4 years. We can't just think of today. We've got to think of a rate that will allow us to grow. We know we have needs coming down the road. We know the mega site is going to connect. We know we're going to have more needs. We have to think to not just today, but the future of this community as it grows, and it will grow. Okay, so reminder of the challenges we faced when we started this road. We started this budget with a $2 million deficit, and that was due to increasing costs the last 6 years, where we've had no tax increase. Now, we're a business. This is a business. I'm, in many ways, a business executive. Any business is going to have in 6 years more fuel costs, more inflationary costs, equipment costs more, fire trucks are now 3 times what they used to be. All equipment has gone up, but there has been no concomitant correlative increase in taxes to accommodate that. So every year the costs go up, but the revenue is staying flat. We're trying to build more tax base into the system, but it doesn't happen overnight. It's going to happen, but it's just not there yet. We're watching building permits. Those are in the system. But the big revenue generators that we've discussed at the mega site just aren't there now. So you have increasing costs, but no tax increase. So here we are, six years later with no tax increase to offset the cost. This is a business. Every business has to operate profitably, or at least break even. We also know that the county faces new long-term multi-million-dollar capital projects with the jail. We've talked about this. We've got to protect the historic buildings. They need to be protected. They're true treasures in this community. They're true gems. We have a duty to protect those. We're talking about a future courthouse complex, among others. We must plan for the long term and think long term and not just today. Finally, the state contribution to schools. We met with the school superintendent, Kim and I, was reduced by $900,000 due to the increased local composite index, which we have to cover just to meet the SOQ minimum. Okay, so the last 2 years we have agreed to this calculation that the schools would get 6% above SOQ. We would like to honor that. We know how important the school system is to the future of the community. We respect the schools. They're performing quite well. If we look at the presentation the superintendent made, the quality of the teaching is very excellent, doing quite well. Okay? So we must maintain some continuity with that. So finally, this is a budget that balances the understanding that the tax rate has gone, that means that property values have increased, so therefore we can adjust the tax rate somewhat, but we must balance that with today's needs and the needs of the future. Okay? So now with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Terrell.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, Kim.
Hopefully I won't put you to sleep today as we go through these numbers, my favorite thing to do.
You're fine.
So, of course, we talked at last meeting just a few weeks ago about our revenue projections. And, of course, our revenue is a little bit different now in the fact that we have more money that's coming in because of the reassessment. And that's, of course, what we're looking at today as far as setting a tax rate and that kind of thing. Our estimates from the Commissioner of Revenue's office, we still are waiting on personal property values that I've been assured that I'll have today. Hopefully that will be close to what I have estimated them to be. I used a 3-year average and kind of adjusted on that basis. But as you all know, there's a lot that can happen with values of vehicles. So right now, all we're looking at is real estate value. So I'll have to look and see what that's going to do to us as well. So we started at $6.2 billion is the value of our property currently. We do have the hearings that are coming up that will adjust that figure by some. Our current tax value, our value at our rate is at 62 cents, and if we were to keep at that rate, our value of that revenue would be $36.5 million, which is $10.1 million more than we had last year. So a 59-cent tax rate gives us approximately $8.3 million of revenue. So, we've moved that needle now from 10.1 down to 8.3. So a total of $2,175,000 has been removed from the request to bring the expenditures in line with our revenues that are currently on the books right now. So our estimates per penny, we went over those during the budget meeting that we had earlier, and I just plugged in what now our value is, but just bear in mind that the other items have not been adjusted, and all of those other localities experienced greater than a 48% average increase. So all of their lines will increase relative to our line. So I just wanted to plug that in. And our value per penny is at $588,000 currently, and that is up from $430,000 prior to this reassessment. So our real estate valuation is on the next slide. And so I have done the same thing with this slide as well as I did with the other slide. And you can see even at 48%, we're still well below Franklin County and Bedford. And those will most definitely go up as well because that's just historical data that I had. I didn't have what their exact amounts were. The next slide just shows a high-level overview of the different departments where we made cuts. We're not really going to dwell on those cuts. I'm going to dwell more on what's included in the 59-cent tax rate budget version. But certainly we can go over any of these that you find that you want clarity on. So the cut that we would need to make is $1,717,000 if we're just going from requests down to the $8.3 million that we have available. So those different departments that are included there, Commissioner of Revenue was a small decrease of $14,119. The Electoral Board, we added $6,000 after budget requests were entered because they are in need of a parliamentarian, and they did not have money budgeted for a parliamentarian, so that was added in. The Sheriff's Office, we made cuts of $373,100, and that was primarily for salaries. We were able to look at that and make sure that there would be sufficient monies to cover his salaries. These are not cuts to positions in any kind of way. So he should not have any problem, having sufficient funds to hire the necessary staff for the Sheriff's Office. Fire and Rescue, we made cuts of $413,000. And just so you all are aware, we did have a meeting with some of our fire and rescue guys. We went over at length those cuts that were made, and I thought the meeting went very well. They seemed to be very pleased with the compromise that we had come up with. And I have what's actually been included in their budget line by line, so we will go over that in just a few minutes. The jail, we made a small cut of $10,261. Building inspections, we have found that we really need to beef up what we are paying our inspectors. We cannot find inspectors. And to know that line of work, it's a lot of things that they have to know to be able to do that job, certifications they have to get, and that kind of thing. Animal control, we made a cut of $20,768. Building and grounds was a small cut of $84,69. Economic development was $8,827. Debt and interest services, and I just want to explain this. This is just kind of moving things around so that you all can see that we are utilizing all of our debt service. So currently in FY 2024, we had a budget amount for debt service payments of $8.4 million. And so we had some debt that fell off to the tune of $597,000. I have created a line that says contribution to project fund. And that money can be set aside to do some of these projects without borrowing money. And we can keep it in a pot. And when we need it, we can use that money for those projects. So I listed it here just so you all could see that $597,000 this year will be taken from debt service to help fund that Moses building project that we didn't really have funding for. So of course we have a need, we have a project that needs to be paid for in the coming budget, but that's why it shows this way. Our capital budget, we have cut by $2,015,424, and we will certainly go over all of the capital items that have been included in this 59-cent proposal. So currently, our adjusted general fund is now at $7,852,274, which is well below the 8.3 that we would need to get to the 59-cent rate, but we don't know all the pieces of the puzzle quite yet. In the next day or two, we will. So one of those pieces of the puzzle is, what is the school's ask going to be? So we did get updated information, and so on the next slide, this is information that we received from the school board, and this is straight from the governor's office. And actually, the Department of Education is who calculates these figures for us. So the governor's budget is the only budget that we had that we estimated how much money was going to go in for our school contribution this year. And that's how we derived that if we did the local required effort plus 6%, we would be at $2,174,924. And so that's currently what sits in this 59-cent version. The House version and the Senate version requires more from us because they've put more stuff in the budget to help fund education. They didn't think it was enough. And so they will be getting more state money specifically for a 3% cost of living increase for their teachers. And so that's primarily what's driving this, among other things. So as you can see, based on the House version, our $2,175,000 would need to go to $3,342,404. And the Senate version rests somewhere in between there, and we would have to fund $2.5 million as opposed to $2.175. So that's roughly about $330,000. So on the previous slide, you see down there if we had to do that and we wanted to continue with providing 6% more than the local required effort, we would have to come up with another $330,000. So that still would put us kind of almost to the level of what we have revenues for. And so that's kind of what we decided we may need to do. And in talking with Ms. Worley at the school board office, she felt that it was going to fall somewhere in between. Rarely do they pass the House version because it's always very much higher. So that's just a little bit about your schools. So the next slide talks about what exactly is included in this 59-cent proposal. So right now, and we have these as discussion items for later, so we can talk about these later on in the presentation. But all of the new requested positions are currently included in that at a total cost of $689,677. And this would fully fund a new ambulance station at 640. There's also a 3% COLA for all county employees on the county's pay plan, and that's a total cost of $670,000. The sheriff's office, and the only reason I put this on here is it was not in the FY24 budget, but we are in year 2 of a vehicle lease. If you'll remember, we carried over funds from his budget to fund that for 24. So what was adopted originally didn't have it in it. So this is something that you can't cut. You're obligated now for 5 years. It's $213,956. So fire and rescue, and I've broken this out into pieces. We pretty much have a paid piece, a shared piece, and we have a volunteer piece that is all housed under fire and rescue. So our shared cost, there's a total increase there of $256,600. I include this because it greatly helps our volunteers as well, so you can't leave this piece out. So this year was the first year that it was determined that we would have a contract for all the EMS equipment. It is a requirement of our insurance to have that. And so if you rely on a volunteer agency and perhaps they don't have the funds to cover maintenance or having these service contracts in to maintain their equipment, we were fearful that, something might fall through the cracks and then you'd have a faulty piece of equipment. That total cost was $212,800. It is included in this budget. Vehicle insurance, there was an increase of $35,000. Training of $5,000. We felt that training was very important for both our volunteers and our paid staff. So that was an increase that it remained in the budget. And then our EMS OMD, of course, we had a figure in there that wasn't solid last year. And so that's just making it exactly what we're paying. So there was a decrease of $1,200. And then our software support expense, it went up by $5,000. So our volunteer operating budget, this is strictly for volunteers. They requested a base funding increase of roughly 20%. It's going from $26,500 to $31,800 at a total cost of $169,600. We did agree to fund that. They did not get an increase last year because we were unable to have revenues to be able to do that. So that is included in this budget. Fire service contracts. So you see those are on the volunteer side because we have no fire equipment. So they asked for pretty much the same thing. They wanted us to pay or cover all of the maintenance contracts. And so we did cut some of those out, but the more important ones we did leave in, the ones that we felt were very much necessary. So we're covering $48,000 of those contracts. The line of duty insurance also went up this year by $10,000. So our new community contributions, this not only includes the small community contributions that you all make to things in the community, but also to public and mental health. And so the increase to that this year was $264,410. And then one of the largest increases, of course, is that school increase funding of $2,175,000. And then we have capital projects. The total increase of those capital projects are $3,150,000. Last year, we funded only $616,000. So, because we hadn't raised tax, we have been unable to do a lot of the projects to get our buildings back in good order. So that's why there's such an increase there. So the total of the major increases come to $7.6 million. So you can see where a lot of that increase came from. We felt it was very important that you all know that information. Any questions on the operating budget before we move on to capital? I know it's a lot of information.
Gentlemen, questions? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Dudley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kim, thank you for doing such a good job. You've worked hard at it every week. Going back to the school, that's still somewhat fluid.
we should know something in the next, like, we are so close.
I understand,
To
yeah.
knowing, Tracy is going to get with me, Miss Worley at the school
Okay.
board. She presents Thursday,
Okay,
and that goes to their school board, and she will get me those figures pretty quickly. So
Okay.
we should know, better where we stand.
all right.
Any others?
You've done a good job, I'm sorry.
Ms. Van der Haat, thank you so
Yes.
much for all the information. Just for the benefit of myself and also my colleagues, would you please just kind of touch on the local composite index and how it increased this particular year, and then the effect that it's going to have in terms of the local match for our schools? Can you share that?
Yes. So our current local composite index currently sits around 25.8 or so. That local composite index is our ability to pay locally. Because that went up this year, this coming year it's proposed to be 26.11. That drives how much money we are required by the state of Virginia to pay to our schools. And so in order for them to draw their money from the state, and we're talking millions of dollars, we are required to pay that local effort. And so if you go back to the slide that shows that first column with those numbers, that is what is listed that we have to pay. We don't have to pay a penny more than that. But as I mentioned to you at the last board meeting, they got $5.9 million more of state money after we adopted our budget. Had we not included additional funds above the local required effort, they would have come with a local request for funding. And so it's nice to have it built in that we don't have to worry about, oh, I've got to come up with another $500,000 this year. You want to be kind of financially sound in making sure you have enough money there for them. Does that make sense? Any?
Any other questions, gentlemen? I have one quick question, Ms. Van der Haat.
Okay.
And I'm honestly not trying to throw a curveball at you, because the county has done a great job in terms of paying down the school debt. Do you know right off the top of your head what the principal amount is that we are at right now?
No, I'd be scared to say, but I will say that principal debt will be paid off in 2031.
Okay.
We will be completely paid. So, well, that's got principal and interest in it. But you've got, and as time goes on, those debt payments will reduce. Come 26, we take another 1.5 million off, and it's big chunks that come off.
I get it.
So,
I get it.
we may have that on a different slide. When we get to long-term debt, we'll look and see, because it may show us, but it may not.
No problem.
But I can get you all that information.
Yes, I get it. I just, last time I looked, I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 29,000.
Million.
Million.
Million, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
a million.
Yes, million, yes.
I thought
Okay.
1,000, we could knock that thing
I
out
know.
today.
We'll pay it off tomorrow.
But yes, but that,
But yes, well,
my point is that affects how much money we can actually put in a reserve fund.
correct.
Okay,
Correct. And so as that debt comes off, we'll move it over to a project fund, and it can be used for debt as well. So as debt comes on, i.e. the jail, in the first few years, we won't need to come up with a lot of debt money, because we've saved this money to the tune of, whatever the $8.5 million is, $8.4 million is. We'll be able to cover that payment at least for year 1 to 2, and then we got to look at maybe raising something to pay that debt. So we are looking strategically at all of that, so that we're not caught, not having ample funds or having to hit our citizens with a big wallop. Okay, so moving on to capital. These are actually the items that are in the capital budget this year. So there's $136,547 for computer capital outlay, and it includes human resources onboarding, community development, public access, so that citizens can actually get a building permit sitting at home instead of driving to Chatham, and then a telephone system upgrade. Building and grounds capital improvement, there is an emergency repairs fund, and that is at $340,000 that is funded. Under fire and rescue capital outlay, so this is another piece of capital for our volunteers as well as our paid staff. There are funds included in this $1,270,000 for preparing if the drug box requirement comes online this year, for PPE, which is personal protective equipment if people don't really know what that is, medical and training equipment, volunteer radio upgrade, and we're in year 2 of that. So that makes up $180,000 of that 1.2. We pay for 2 volunteer fire engines. We make a contribution towards those. And so currently that stands at $200,000. They requested that be increased to $250,000. We compromised, and this budget currently includes $25,000 additional. So every fire truck contribution that we make now will go from $200,000 to $225,000. Same with our ambulances. They asked for a $50,000 per ambulance increase, and we increased it $25,000. So now, instead of paying $125,000 per ambulance, we'll pay $150,000. And then, of course, we have included a career staff ambulance. And so that's what makes up that $1,270,000. Community development capital outlay. This is called that, but it's really for our departments. If you have like a one-off request, like the voting equipment, the library, and of course Moses Building is included in this. But in that 1.9 is our comprehensive plan. We've included half of the funds for that, and hopefully we would be able to get the others with grants. Moses Building renovations, the voting equipment year 1, and the library bookmobile down payment. And then recreation capital outlay, it's a total of $40,250, and that includes funds for a tractor for Wayside Park, and then our school facility use fee that we have to pay annually to our schools. So the grand total for all that capital is $3,766,290. And if you remember, that is an increase over last year of $3,150,000 because, of course, we only funded $616,000 last year. Any questions on capital?
Mr. Dudley. Mr. Dudley was first.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
You're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kim, could you maybe unpack a little bit on the school facility use fee? Give us a little information about that. For some of the newer ones maybe that's on
Okay.
as well. Yeah.
So when recreation started back in, I think, around 2011, 2012, Mark Moore was our recreation director at that time. And of course, he was put in charge of youth sports. There was really no facilities to be had.
Right.
And so he made an agreement with our schools that we would pay them a facility use agreement or a use fee. There was a use agreement that said they would allow us to use the gyms, fields, and such as that for a specific fee. Now that fee is used for things that are jointly utilized, say bathroom facilities, or maybe something that they do to the gym. They need to redo the floors or something like that. That fee was to be paid to the schools for things that would help with whatever facilities we were using. And that has been greatly reduced. It was quite a bit more. I think it started maybe at $40,000 that we paid, and now it's at $15,000. So of that figure, that $40,000 figure, $15,000 is the amount that we have in there. The last couple of years, we don't really pay that unless they have a use for it. So we have a little bit of a balance in there, but the schools are bringing to their schools middle school sports, which are going to greatly diminish our ability to use those gyms and things like we have in the past. So, the thought was it may be that we have to rethink the use of these funds if we have to rent somewhere for them to go to practice and that kind of thing. So we're trying to think outside of the box with that.
Yep.
But we'll certainly be working with our schools, in any kind of way to utilize those facilities as best we can.
Thank you.
Okay, thank
Mr. Dalton, okay.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Van der Heide, on the 40,000, I know that's for the school fees and then a tractor. Are we still contracting out the work at Wayside? I'm trying to see why we need a tractor at Wayside.
It's a guy that works part-time that does work over there, cleaning up the bathrooms and doing different things over there.
But are we still contracting out all the mowing and stuff down there?
Oh, yeah.
So what does he need a tractor for now? I mean, I'm just asking. We're already contracting.
I'm not sure. Dave, can you speak to that?
He might be putting
I mean, Dennis might be using no Dennis area. Yeah. No. But I'm just trying to figure out,
feed plot.
Right, sure, that's a fair question. My understanding is we would basically rent a tractor for certain projects and everything like that. Not necessarily just for Wayside Park, but for Parks and Rec needs. This would give us the ability to not have to, rent that from, like an equipment supply place or something like that. We would actually own it. So might be a bit misleading to state Wayside Park beside that, because it would be for the whole system. Yeah,
Well,
actually, it might be housed at even a different location. But I think Wayside Park might be one of the parks that would use it the most. But I think we do a fair amount of that type of work ourselves. It's just the equipment we don't already have, so we've got to lease that.
So I don't think it's anywhere to store it at Wayside, so.
That's what I don't think there is
think so.
either.
So
No,
we
it's going to be stored, and it might be like at a public works yard, or actually it might be at animal control.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure on the storage location of it, but I agree. I don't think it's going to be Wayside. Yeah, we can get more information, but that's the rationale
And they have
behind that
a way to
request.
transport it? Are they going to have somebody to do that?
Well, I guess there need to be a trailer
Oh, yeah,
involved.
that's right.
Yeah. So, yeah, we can get some further clarification on that particular item, but I think the quote that we put in the budget was around $25,000 for the tractor.
That's a small tractor. That's not very big.
Oh, it's right. You're right.
25,000.
It's not a beefy one.
That's very small.
No.
But I'm just trying to visualize why do we need it if we have a contract already doing this work. But if it's needed for other areas,
I think
then,
there's
that may be the case.
And I think some of this work is being done internally, is being done in-house. It's
Okay.
just, again, we don't have the equipment. But we're getting together again next week on budget matters, right? So we can get you an update
just-
either in the Friday update or definitely by
Sounds
Tuesday
good.
next week. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Dave.
Any other questions?
Yeah, that's it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have for right now. Thank you.
So these are our long-term needs. I just wanted to make sure that you all are very aware of what's coming down the road. These don't necessarily impact our current FY25 budget, but they will. That's the critical county facility improvements. That's primarily for HVACs. Could be some renovation work at some of our facilities. And this is just an estimate, was $5 million. The broadband project, we still have $4.5 million that we will have to finance. Now, if you all will remember, there is a revenue sharing agreement in place with River Street to help pay that debt. I mean, it'll take a very long time to pay all that debt with the revenue sharing that's in place, but there is a vehicle to get some of that revenue from subscriptions to these for internet. Our dam project, this is just an estimate as well. We're looking at maybe $5 million for that. And then, of course, the big one is the jail project, and that's $62.4 million. And just remember, a portion of that, to the tune of around $14 million, will be paid, or hopefully by the state, 25% of that. So we will have a 3-year construction type loan, and then when we get the money from the state, we will pay that off. So we're looking at permanently financing about $48 million instead of that 62. Then our courthouse project, and that is a huge guess there because we're not really sure what we're going to do. But just those 2 items alone will take us currently to our maximum threshold that we would want as far as debt capacity. So that's another thing that we'll look at this year, is maybe changing how we look at our debt capacity, because the way we do it now is based on value of property, and I think we need to look at it in a different light as far as percentage of debt payments to general fund, to make sure we're not overextending ourselves with that debt capacity, because you wouldn't want to go to the top of whatever you can borrow and not be able to make the payment. So we want to look at not making it looser, we want to make it to where it's tighter, to where we can maybe afford some of these things. And then that recreation center project, that's just in there, not necessarily something you have to do, but just looking at, now that schools are doing middle school sports, it may be something that we need to look at in the future. But that's out quite a ways, but we wanted all of that to be, on the horizon, so you know that those things are coming. The next slide refers to our long-term debt needs. And so it does look like it's just payments. I was thinking maybe it may be total debt, but these are our debt payments. So as you can see from that bar on 2024, that's at $8.4 million. And you see how that debt over time kind of sloughs off. And so the thought is that extra capacity up to the 2024 line would be used, at least in the short term, to be funding projects instead of, doing all this as far as financing project. So, of course it says currently the county has a debt amount outstanding, $31 million. There it is right in the slide, $31 million.
There you go.
Annual debt service ranges from 1.2 to 8.4, with a final maturity in FY 2031. And so, of course, that's what they were proposing to do, this debt reserve. And we're, complying with that. We think that's a great idea. So now we're to you all doing the talking. Maybe we can discuss some items. So some of the things that we would like to really know, we would really like to know your appetite to fund some of these community donations. We would like to go over these new positions. And then lastly, we would really like your input on a tax rate, your rationale for maybe why you want a certain tax rate. And of course, just so you know, the tax rate you have to look at, you shouldn't look in a silo. You really need to look at, if we do this year, then maybe next year we won't have to look at rate again. You do have to look at that. And just bear in mind, it has been 6 years, and a lot has happened in this country to drive inflation. The bills for your citizens go up just like the bills for the locality. And so in order to provide quality service, we've got to pay out quite a bit. So, and that's why we had a $2 million hole last year, because inflation, was at its all-time high, and then we didn't have a rate increase. So the first item, and I think these slides kind of got out of order some, are community donations. So I have printed off a sheet for you all that has this very large, and I have highlighted the ones that are new or increased. So I'm not sure if you want to fund all those, if we want to talk about them individually, or how you all would like to proceed. And
Gen-
I can go through them.
Mr. Bowman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kim, thank you. That was a great presentation. And I've got a number of questions, but I'm going to take them as you
That's fine.
bring them up, okay? So I'll try to track with you because I was using the old presentation and I'm looking at the new presentation and I'm kind of going back and forth with this.
That's fine.
So I'll probably refer to the old one, but you'll be able to know where it's at on the new one. Okay. So since you brought this up on the community donations, the one that pops out at me is the Chamber of Commerce line. A couple of years ago, it was funded at $3,000. Then next year it came in at $25,000 on top of that, which gives it $28,000, and now it's $58,000, a $30,000 increase. Did they give you a reason why? Because I'm not there on that.
So $3,000 is how much our donation was, and basically it was for our membership. I mean, it was our membership to the chamber. And so last year or year before, they started a Rev Up campaign. I'm sure you've heard about that, where you're helping small businesses and they give a reward or an award to start business. And so we put $25,000 in. I think the city put $25,000 in, and then they got a grant for the other. It's my understanding that they don't have that grant anymore, but they want to continue doing the program. So that's what the additional ask was, now that that grant is no more.
Yeah, I'm not there for $30,000 additional dollars. I mean, we can come up with maybe 10, and this is just me talking, but I'm not in for $30,000. That's a huge increase from $3,000 2 years ago to $58,000.
Anybody else have any questions?
Mr. Dudley.
Kim, and it's not necessarily, it's what you have covered, but the question is going to come from the public, and believe me, we're all getting phone calls, every one of us. And the question's going to come, well, anything above 1%, we've really got to, you're going to have to go through and break it down, unpack it, let them know the reason. Other than what you've given us today, is there anything else that you would add to that? Because we got to sell it at 59, and it's a tough one right now. Just being honest,
Ms. Van Hyde, can you go back to the slide? This will probably help answer Mr. Dudley's question and show us, 57, 58, 59 cent tax and the effect on the household.
Okay.
And I think that's the question that you're asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've really got to have a good sale for this.
Right.
And what kind of increase is it if we set it at 59? What kind of increase would it be? It would be way above 1%.
Oh, yes. And we would have to advertise that as an increase.
Of course.
Definitely have to advertise that as an increase.
Okay.
If you were to roll your tax back to just 1%, you're looking at 42 cents. I'm going to tell you.
That's revenue neutral.
Revenue neutral would
Well, I
be
have asked
42
that.
cents.
Yeah,
Yep.
I understand that.
And so what I've done for you on the very last slide, I think it's very important that you look at that. A house that used to be valued at $200,000, and we talked about this a little bit, but I want you to see what a value of a penny is, okay?
Sure.
So $200,000 at an average increase of 48%, which is not everybody. Some went over 50, some was a little less than 48, but on average,
96,000.
countywide, it was 48%. That home would now be valued at $296,000.
Yep.
And so at 62 cents per $100, what they used to pay was $1,240. And if you want to see this, it is on your last page, Mr. Dudley.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry.
And so at
Yep.
59 cents, which we've rolled back to, that new tax would be $1,746.40. So they will have to pay $506.40 more per year. If you divide that over a 12-month period, that's about $40 a month.
That's right.
Okay, if we reduce it just by 1 cent, that's going to save that taxpayer $29.60. For every penny you drop is $29.60 per year, not per month, per year. So they're going to go from 506 to 476 to 447. That's your per pennies. So it looks like every penny you drop, you're looking at about $30 for the whole year for your citizen. For you all to drop a penny, we have to cut $588,000. That's putting it a little bit in perspective. But it certainly, they're going to want to know that.
Yeah.
And yes, that sticker shock. But then take it could have been we could have done a penny a year or something like that, but we opted not to do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing, I think I've talked to Mr. Dalton about it, I've talked to Mr. Tucker about it. It's, what would your citizens want to see? Would you want, we can't just pick a rate and stick with it. It's going to be hard if you said, okay, we're always going to just charge our citizens 50 cents. It would be great if we could just say the rate will forever be 50 cents. But we don't live in a society where we can do that. So then the question becomes, do you want to set a rate that's going to look a little bit ahead and not charge them every year? Or do you want to look at it year for year for year and just go up as you need to? And maybe it's 1 cent, and this one is so large because we hadn't done it in 6 years. That's why it has to be so big.
Question. Mr. Bowman.
Thank you. Kim, thank you. I want to stay on the,
Contributions?
contributions, and I'm just a couple of questions. That was the only one that really popped out. But what is the Virginia Legal Aid Society? We have nothing entered in there, and then it's a $10,000.
They have asked for years for that $10,000, and it's to help people that don't have legal representation in court. And we get a letter every year, and they ask for $10,000, and we've never funded it.
All right, what if we give them 5,000? I'm okay with it, but I'm just kind of looking at.
Do you know that much about it, Baden? Virginia Legal Aid Society?
They have branches all out Virginia, and what they do is they provide legal services to indigent clients in civil type cases, landlord-tenant stuff, consumer protection. They're a very good organization. They have an office in Danville, an office in Lynchburg, office in most major cities. Other than that, I know that they're a legit organization. I don't know much about them.
Okay, thank you. And the summer intern program contribution, $75,000.
That was a program that was started several years ago
Okay.
with the Institute for Advanced Learning and Research. And we participate, and the city of Danville participates. And so this is funds to pay those interns, and they're basically in high school, juniors and seniors in high school, that come out and work with the localities. And there are some that work out in the community as well. And so instead of the businesses paying for that, the localities will send money to fund this program. And they learn how to interview for jobs. They have to come for an interview. I think the year that I had an intern, I had 3 that came, and I asked them questions, got them prepared kind of to get into the job market and that kind of thing. And then they work for 6 weeks. And so with us, they would work, and I guess all of them did this, they worked Monday through Thursday, and then Friday was their recap. They would go to the Institute, and they would tell about their experience from the week. And they would work a regular work day. So that's just something that we funded. And what would happen, it wasn't in our budget before, but every year they would have to come and ask for that money every year. And so I think this 24 year is the first year we put the money in just so that we had it. But it's pretty well run. It may be something that we want to look at to see, do we want to continue that? And it seems like the kids that were involved, they worked anywhere from the pet center They worked at the school board office. They worked, in various and different places, IT, building inspections, just a plethora of different
Are they
things.
Pennsylvania County residents?
Yes. So the ones we have come from county schools.
Okay. And how many? Do you know?
Do you remember how many we had, Dave? 12 this year? 12, 15? 8 to 12? Okay,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Thank you, Ms. Bowman.
All right, that's all I've got on that
Mr.
one.
Dalton,
Good.
please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to comment towards Mr. Bowman's question about the chamber. I mean, looking back, I know we lost Miss Moran, and then the chamber moved, and it kind of just got idle there for a while. And then we got Miss Moore, Miss Ann Sparks Moore back, and she started more programs. This ramp up, I did attend one of the small business, and I think they had give them some startup money to do some concrete work, $10,000 or $12,000. So, I mean, it's a good program to get a small business started. Maybe I'm like Mr. Bone, maybe we don't need to give them that much, but I would like to give them some more because it is a good program. I mean, I'd say take away the 5 from the lawyer or whatever there and give it to the chamber and help them out. Because, I mean, it is a great program, and that would help go towards Pennsylvania County on small business. But thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Ingram?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I totally agree with Chairman Dalton. The Chamber's done a fabulous job. This is a good program, and I would surely love to see us totally fund the request. And, as far as the legal aid, I know that they get substantial state money, and I want to say some federal money, but, if we went back to 23, I'd be happy with that.
Thank you.
That was nothing.
If no other questions, let me kind of interject something here and address Mr. Bowman's question on the intern program. We have actually supported that program, but rather than they're coming to the board and requesting the funds, I think they just decided to go ahead and put it in the budget because we assume that we want to support our youth and we want to be able to develop these young people through the county. So that is a program that I am going to support.
What about these new ones? The brand new ones? It's the block that's in highlight. They've asked for money in the past, but we've never funded them. It's kind of like the Virginia Legal Aid.
Which one is it, Ms. Van der Heide?
It's-
Mine's not
it-
blocked. I can't read it anymore.
It's the big yellow block down at the bottom. It starts with Rural Community Assistance Program.
Uh-huh.
So it's on this big page on
Okay.
your clip. So it's a
Gotcha.
little bit bigger for you to see.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I was real clear with that. So.
I got you. Hang on.
And it should be highlighted. The only other one we need to discuss is Community Action. They've not received an increase in several years. For years, we only gave them $100,000, and probably, I would say 4 to 5 years ago, we gave them $105,000. And it's been that way probably since 2020, I would say, 2019. And so they were asking for that to go to 125. They use our money as leverage to get grants. I don't think it's an unreasonable ask for them because they're experiencing the same kind of
Yeah,
inflation that we are too.
they provide some good services. Yeah. Community Action does.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Yeah, I totally agree that is worthy, and we surely would try to allocate the 125. And coming down, like I said, I like what's listed as far as the chamber. But below that, if we were to eliminate the ones below that, you'd be looking at, close to 25,000. So, and we can always come back next year and look at it and review it. But the top two, in my opinion, are imperative. Thank you.
Thank you.
So do you all feel that way?
The Rural Community Assistance Program, now what does that consist of? I see it's a $5,000 thing.
I'm not really sure exactly what they do. The letter requested that money. I didn't review the letter again, but you all should have gotten that with your
Okay.
budget information. I'm not really sure.
I mean, I'm in favor of eliminating, well, I don't know, the American Red Cross is a good function. I don't know if we want to
Mr. Ingram.
do.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
I
I
thought
just gonna say that rural community, I'm not sure about that, and the brain injury service and feed in Southwest Virginia, and the legal aid society there. I mean, I would agree on deleting those, but that's just my comment.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Mr. Ingram.
No, sir, I think, I agree with Chairman Dalton. The American Red Cross does such a fabulous job, and I would hate for us not to give them something.
Now, that's the first year we've received a request. I think they sent me one last year, but it was way after the deadline, and so you all didn't even see that really because it was past the point we could give them anything, so.
You know, this time of year, everybody comes out with a wish list, and we ask the question, well, what would they do with that money? And it's been evidence today that we don't really know what they do with that money. I don't mean that as critical as it sounded, but I think we need a good, clear, precise understanding of exactly what you want the money for. So maybe again, looking at next year's budget, we could close the gaps. But, you know, again, I think the Red Cross is surely worthy of our support. And Community Action and Chamber, those are the three that I'd love to see us fund. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Bowman, did I see you?
Well, I would recommend next year, and this is for future planning, that any of these folks here come before the board and present their case to the board before we get to this point, because like my colleagues here, I don't know what some of these are. I see brand new entries. If you're not here, if it's not worthy of you to show up, then it's not worthy of me to support you. I'm sorry, but that's kind of the way I feel about it. So these others, these are new requests in here, other than maybe the Red Cross. I would say reducing that down maybe half, make that 2,500. Those others, I would say, you know, we'll look at you next year.
Okay.
I'm good.
Somebody, anything else? Ms. Van Hyde, just as a, excuse me, a suggestion, and of course, we'll commit as the Finance Committee to take a deeper dive into this, but can you, going forward, even on these requests, possibly send out an email to all of the supervisors with maybe an explanation of the actual organization and why
Sure.
they're requesting what they're requesting?
Yes,
That would be helpful information.
yes.
Thank you.
Do we want to move on to the positions?
Yes.
So the positions that are currently in here are a request totaling roughly $690,000. There are 7 full-time positions. There's an IT help desk technician that's included, 4 public safety. There are 2 EMS basic positions and 2 paramedics. That's to fund that 640 station. A youth sports coordinator, and then a case manager for community policy and management team are your 7 full-time positions included. There are 3 part-time conversions to full-time positions. There's 1 at the registrar's office that's currently a part-time position, would be going full-time. and then 2 911 dispatchers would be going from part-time to full-time, and there's also a part-time position that's included for the library at Brosville. So the breakdown, you have this also in the packet that had the paper clip on it, so you can see it a little bit better. This is actually how much all of these cost. So we can go down through them. I have also included at the very back of that paper clipped packet a justification for all of the full-time positions and the part-time to full-time conversions. So we can certainly refer to those if you all would like to do that.
I have a question, Ms. Van Hyde.
Yes.
And it's no surprise to you. This information technology position, can I hear from Mr. Arnold in terms of the rationale of putting on an additional person in information technology?
Yes.
Yep, that's a good question.
Thank you, sir.
Be glad to. Basically, this is an entry-level position, as you probably could gather from the job title. Like every department, you have varying levels of basic tasks and responsibilities up to more complex and advanced. Right now, we have some of our more senior staff, which are systems engineers, handling a lot more of the basic tasks, like password resets. My mouse isn't working, I need new batteries. My monitor, I can't get it to display, and it can be solved through just like making sure it's powered up properly. Very, basic stuff. So what this would do is it would be a shared resource between our information technology and information management departments. So they would help with a lot of the easier to handle tasks that are reported to the help desk, whether it's software related or hardware related. Things like creating a new account for a new employee, that's fairly straightforward and basic as well. Disabling accounts for people that leave the organization. And what this essentially would do is would allow those more senior positions, i.e. the systems engineers, to pursue more advanced and complex responsibilities. And they vary in terms of scope. IT, who handles a lot more of the hardware and network infrastructure, installing new switches, making sure the network is performing to its fullest capabilities. It allows our staff to be more responsive, where a systems engineer is not bogged down with 10 basic requests. They can go ahead and give priority to those responsibilities that are deserving of their skill set. If it's software related, a systems engineer can help work with vendors to deploy and implement the solutions that are also in this budget related to the online portal for permits, which would help out the community development department and also customer service in general. Also, there's a request on there for an HR module as well. So the enterprise applications systems engineer would be a liaison between the end user department and the software vendor. One of the biggest things I want to point out, and I understand how IT and also information management kind of operates behind the scenes. When it's working, all's good. But there are a lot of times when you really don't see them until there's a problem. And then they're coming to your office, or if it's in this board meeting room, they're coming to help troubleshooting something there with the tablets that you use. So it's difficult to really understand what all they're working on. But I do want to bring up a situation that I read about in national media that occurred just last week. And this is you might not know about this particular situation, but you're going to know that this is a very real and present threat. And that deals with cybersecurity. So just last week, I read about Dubuque County in Iowa. Their county government, someone spoofed or posed as a city within the jurisdictional boundary of Dubuque, Iowa. I think it was a locality called like Dyersville. And they asked probably the finance director or somebody in the finance department for Dubuque, Iowa, hey, can you go ahead and transfer that ARPA money over to us? Well, best practices say if it's a sizable request or it's a little outside the norm, you should call to verify and make sure that request is legit. But we all can get caught off guard, right? So essentially what happened, Dubuque County released over $500,000 into an account that was not for this municipality within Dubuque County's jurisdictions. The money's now gone. That just was last week. We hear about cybersecurity threats in the private and public sectors weekly, if not really daily. So it's not to say that funding a help desk technician position is going to exactly equate to, oh, now we are fully on guard for any cybersecurity threats. I'm not going to begin to paint that picture. But what I will say is that this gives the bandwidth to staff to ensure that the appropriate skill sets are addressing the needs of the organization. And one of the most emerging and critical needs that has surfaced over the past 20 years for all IT departments is cybersecurity. So all it takes is one time and the system is compromised and the position, but in this case, if it was us, somebody stole that $500,000 worth, it would have funded nearly all these individual, about 70% of these, new employee requests right here. So it behooves every organization, large and small, to be very vigilant in this area. And we do have an initiative already underway, and I'm proud of its progress, but I can't begin to say how imperative it is to continue to keep our eyes on the prize in keeping our guard up. And this technology is emerging constantly. And what we thought was going to be adequate today, folks that are in the cybersecurity know-how, they're evolving too. And they got new strategies, and it's just a very living thing that you've got to be willing to just own and address.
I would like to lend my support to that, if you don't mind. From my side of things, I'm watching the whole system as a business function. They get 1,000 service calls a year, about just under 100 a month, where there's no dedicated person to put out the fire. These guys are working on the big picture things. Thank you, Dave, if you don't mind. I just thought I would support that. There's lost productivity in the organization when the systems go down and there's no dedicated help desk person. I've been in community development talking to Ms. Ragsdale and watched the system crash with building contractors in the vestibule waiting for service, and the system is down. And without a dedicated help desk person, you lose productivity. My concern is it's not just the internal productivity of the staff, but it can impact customer service. And what we are about is a customer service organization. We're here to serve the public. I've seen it personally, the systems crash. We need that 911 number, get the help desk person there. It's not really gonna hurt the budget that significantly. So it's the customer service aspect internally and externally, but also Dave's point is well taken. These guys are working on sophisticated systems under constant cyber attack. All it takes is one breach of the system, and you get a ransom, and then you get some leaked personnel data. That is a monumental liability. I don't think it's any sort of hysterical fear. I think it's a realistic threat now. We hear all the time about China and Russia trying to hack our systems constantly. So a dedicated help desk person is at the weeds level, putting out the fires, allowing the other folks to work on the system, negotiate contracts, try to get costs down with vendors on this equipment. work on the business side of thing and and help build firewalls. It's no longer a luxury, the IT department. It's a must.
Thank you all, but let me just say for the record, and Mr. Arnold, I appreciate, you're shedding a little light. However, there are going to be bad actors out there, and I'm not sure that an entry-level IT person is actually going to take care of, cybersecurity. Mr. Terrell, to your point, the question becomes, how frequently will the system go down? And, the next question that begs to be answered is, are our information technology personnel stretched to the point that they cannot respond to as you would call it, a 911 with the system? Because technology is supposed to kind of free up some dollars in my thinking, and just a question, could not they basically pick up the phone and call, some of these entry-level issues, when a computer goes down? They can kind of talk them through it, or they can sit there and remotely take over that computer. I'm assuming that these computers are numbered, so they could take them over remotely, and from wherever they're located, they can actually get that issue straightened out behind the scenes. I mean, that's how I've seen it done, but I'm no expert.
Right. No, they can do a lot of things through remote connections, absolutely. They don't physically have to go on site.
Okay.
I think the point about the cybersecurity is, just to make sure I expressed it clearly,
I
it's an
understand.
indirect.
Well taken. Yes.
It's an indirect benefit, right? Your help desk technician is not going to potentially make a dent in building up an organization's resiliency to cybersecurity threats. But they will have a hand in it, right? But what that does is it frees up other staff and other resources to address that. As far as, is there a 911 situation or a crisis matter that couldn't be given top priority? Well, certainly, in the event of an emergency or something like that, we will. To answer your question, and then I'll address what Scott was just saying, or maybe just let him speak firsthand. We'll certainly prioritize. If we've got a list of this many basic IT requests and then something unexpected comes out of left field, yeah, we pivot. These folks make those adjustments all the time, but we're doing a lot of robbing Peter to pay Paul with our prioritization. And some of our long-term pursuits, we're not able to make the headway that we could have because we're in a lot of a reactionary state in just handling, again, the help desk requests that come in. So, Scott, and please.
Just an example, exactly what you were asking. This morning, as a matter of fact, Josh was out getting ready. We had a problem with one of the servers. We were all coming down here to set up for this meeting. There was nobody left in the IT department to help. So it was just, tracking down somebody to go over there as fast as possible. And that happens more than you know, because in IT, the hardware side, it's just myself and Josh. And then we have Kevin fills in and does a lot for us as well, just like we help out with IM. So there are many times where having that basic person to take over the help desk functions would help. Another example is I've been trying to install network switches. I have $80,000 worth of switches that have been sitting around for 5 months because we can't get the time that we need to install them, because Josh will start working on installing a switch and then somebody will have a printer issue or something like that. He'll have to stop and go work on that. And we pay the engineers pretty well. We pay them a whole lot more than they should be making to change toner cartridges. That's usually a help desk entry-level position feature. So that's just, to your example, we have had issues where work has not got done because everybody was out doing something already.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
I think so. You good? Anybody?
Well,
have-
more to come. We'll talk
Mis-
about it in the finance committee.
Mr. Chairman, can I
Mr. Dalton.
comment on your question? Hey, Dave, I had a question, I'm sorry. This new position, which departments would it be assisting? I mean, our sheriff's department already has IT.
Right.
We have radio equipment people, I guess, in play. Harris or somebody looks after our 911 equipment. So what would this,
So you have a
Person.
systems administration, systems administrator / communications equipment administrator in public safety, right? You do have we just call it an IT specialist. I don't have the official position title in front of me that is in the sheriff's department. You're exactly right. This would be within the IT department is where this position would be. But keep in mind that the network is maintained by our IT department.
right?
So there's mutual support going on all the time, between public safety and our IT and information technology departments. Same thing with the sheriff and IT and IM, as well as public safety. They all support the broader county to ensure all of our network, hardware, infrastructure, and software and systems are performing as they are expected to.
So would this position be helping in all those fields? Or
It
just
would,
doing-
yes, it would potentially be able to help out all across the board, anywhere our network is serving a department or an end user. Right, but the position would actually be in information technology. But everyone would have access to this as needed, this position.
Okay, all right, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No problem. Any other? Mr. Bowman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've reviewed all of these, and I'll just cut to the chase here real quick. Information technology, I think it's critical. Weren't these positions in this past year or this current year's budget memo as not funded? They were in there, right? So we're covering this ground again.
They've been requested in the past, yeah.
Yeah, they've been requested in the past, and
Right.
it was, under the current budget memo, they haven't been funded. Is
Correct.
that correct? And so the need is still there?
Yes.
So my position is for that one information technology position that we go ahead and fund that. I'm going to read right down my list so you don't have to come back to me, Mr. Chair. For public safety, I'm recommending 2 of those positions at this time. For the recreation, 1 position. For the community policy and management, that's the children at risk, recommend that position. I'm recommending the 1 part-time at the Brosville Library. And for the 3 part-time to full-time, I'm recommending conversion to full-time on 1 January 2025, which saves 6 months' worth of salary at that difference. So bringing them on 1 January. Those are my recommendations. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. What else do you have for us, Ms. Van Dyke?
The last thing we need to talk about is tax rate. We need to know where you all
Mr.
stand.
Chairman.
Hang on one second.
I'm sorry, Ms. Van Dyke.
Yes, sir.
I
Mr.
thought we
Dalton.
was going down the list. I had some questions
Go
about
ahead.
the public safety. I think Mr. Keys has just come in. Could I have him come up? I want to ask him a question. I know these 4 positions in the ambulance is for the 640. Thank you, Mr. Keys. How you
Yes, sir.
doing today, sir?
Hey, doing good. Sorry for being a little late.
You fine. In relations to the 640 rescue, I know we got in here for 4 public safeties and employees, and then an ambulance too.
Yes, sir.
Is it a first responding unit there now?
Yes, sir. When 640 community shut down, when they rescue,
Right.
when they shut down, most of their assets come to the county. So what we did was take those assets and invest it back in the community and put a first responder vehicle there that services 13 hours a day from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7 days a week. So by us putting 4 more people there, we can staff an ambulance 24/7 with 2 people per day all the year.
Okay.
If we only get 2 people, then we won't be able to fund it 24/7.
All right, now, is Gretna, North Halifax, and Ringo, Blair's, aren't they filling in the gaps on
Yeah,
the
right
call?
now, North Halifax, EMS Base 1, which is in Hurt, Gretna, Chatham, and Blair's all cover little parts of that community.
Right.
And we still serve a first responder truck for 13 hours a day there.
Right. All right, that was going back to the first respond. If we made that first respond vehicle a 24-hour service, how many people would it take to have?
It's going to take 6 total people.
No, I'm just talking about the first response. If we had you said right now it's just 13 hours at the day.
Yes, sir?
So the other 11, there's nobody there.
No, sir.
So if we made that first response vehicle available 24/7, would it take another employee to do that?
Yes, sir. We would have to have a third employee for that station.
So they
currently have 2, but
only,
we have to add 1.
Okay. On the first response, they have somebody with medical experience, they can respond and get there before the rescue squad or
Yes, sir.
try to help. Is that, I remember going in there when that department shut down. Is it even in living quarters to have?
Not at this time, no, sir.
No, I was going to say, if you had a male and a female on the same shift, you'd have to have at least 2 bedrooms. I don't think it's any room, well as I remember, it was a couch in there and a bathroom and a little kitchen area.
Yes, sir. We was going to
So-
convert one of the garages into a bedroom.
You would have to make
Yes,
some
sir.
bedrooms or something there.
Yes, sir.
But that's what I'm getting at. We have so many areas that's, I'm thinking even Gretna, underserved.
Underserved.
If you go from Gretna to Brights up at Leesville Lake, it's 20 or 25 minutes, and you hope nobody's in your way to get there.
Yes, sir.
So I know we have that now, and I definitely want to protect the people everywhere, down on 640, Gretna, all over this county. But I'm just trying to think, if we didn't purchase a rescue squad and hire these 4 people, could we just get by with hiring 1 and make that first response 24/7 and have somebody there, and it makes no difference when the call comes in, let them get there first and then let Gretna, Ringo, Blair's, whoever it would be to respond to it to help out.
Yeah, it's not going to get them to the hospital any faster due to just the long response times for any one of those ambulances.
Right.
Yeah, it would put somebody on scene 24/7.
That's what I'm saying. It would be great to have somebody there 24/7.
Yes.
I see that.
Yes.
But I'm just wondering if that would work. And again, it's not in my district. I ain't trying to knock it. I got the same problem in my district, and I think every other supervisor probably does.
It's in my district. I'll
But
have the
it's-
last word. Mr.
Okay. But I was just my question. I want to see how they were set up, and I knew you knew that.
Yes, sir.
And I was just wondering if that could work. Maybe we could take this money and put it in that fund and see how this worked for the next 6 months or next 12. And then if we needed to go ahead and buy that ambulance, we could. But that's just me.
At some point, we're going to have to get on a capital replacement plan.
Right.
But, we're running a 2004 and a 2007 ambulance right now. You can't get parts for them anymore.
That's right.
We got a 2012 and 2 2019 ambulances that are first out.
Right.
Last week, we was without 2 ambulances. Both my reserves were in the shop. So at some point, we've got to get to a replacement, start replacing them. It don't matter if it takes a 2-year budget to get enough money to set aside to start replacing these ambulances. We're struggling right now. And these were hand-me-down ambulances that come from other departments.
Right.
When we use that money to help support the volunteers. So
That's right.
we're making it work. It's just it's maintenance bills going up. So
I understand.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for those answers.
yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm
No
sorry.
problem. Mr. Ingram, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First and foremost, I want to yield back to you because it is your district, and we want to make sure that those folks there are absolutely covered. And what I've been hearing is that even with the shortfall, is that you guys collectively have done a good job covering the needs of that community. Two additional things. One, is there a possibility that we could renew the effort to generate volunteerism in that area? Because the old volunteers have sort of moved on, but it just seems like if we entered into an aggressive process of trying to get revitalization from that community, that was one thought. And another, not trying to throw a monkey wrench in what's going on here, but since we do have this public safety study, fire and rescue study underway, would it be feasible to maybe wait and see what they recommend before we totally commit to hiring all these additional new hires? Just my thoughts.
Anyone else? Well, thank you, Mr. Ingram, for giving me your time. Yes, 640 is in my district, and I am going to support the for public safety for several reasons. It's several reasons, and let me just kind of quickly tick them off. First off, the citizenry, the constituents in that community pay their taxes just like everyone else, even on the south side. And what I get sometimes is the fact that, all of the benefits, basically, and all of the industry and all of the, niceties and trinkets are going toward, the southern part of the community. I mean, I get that. But that's one thing. Second thing is, we have to keep the safety of the community in mind, just as an ad hoc station, first responder. It takes North Halifax, Blair's. I've talked to some of, the fire EMS. It takes them too long to even get on the scene. Then they have to get somebody off the scene. Now, emergencies, we can't set our watch by it, okay? Does that mean someone's not going to have a heart attack at 2 o'clock in the morning? Does it mean someone is not going to have a stroke past midnight? Those things are going to require speed. With heart attacks, time is muscle. Any doctor will tell you that. With strokes, obviously you want to be able to save or salvage as much of the person's mental acuity as possible, and you don't want them to be damaged by the stroke because time is of the essence. Now, how long does it take to get a chopper down there? I don't know the answer to the question. Then how much does it cost to ride the chopper to Roanoke, to Lynchburg, that sort of thing? So that's why I'm going to support that, and I think we need to do it this year while we have the opportunity. And the last thing I'll say, and obviously I'm under an MDA, but we're in talks right now with potential industry to move in that direction. And I've had conversations with a cost-sharing arrangement with providing, some fire EMS services down in that community. So I think it's critically important that we fund that and we support it. And we, certainly don't want to get behind other communities that are actually being proactive. And I think Ms. Vanderhyde started this conversation out with all of us here to suggest, the decisions that we make today is not just for today. We can't keep putting a Band-Aid on this situation. We have to be very forward-thinking. We have to set the tax rate at a number that we don't have to go back next year, the following year, or whatever the case is, and ask the citizens, can we raise taxes again? Of course, no one wants to raise taxes, but at the same time, it is our responsibility as a board to provide for the health and the safety and the welfare of the community. So therefore, all of this should be taken together with the decision that we're going to make to fund this budget, and I'm going to support, and I'll tell you openly, and I'll probably get some heat, but I'm going to support 59 cents per 100. It doesn't mean that, fire EMS is going to get all of the funds. It does not mean that we're going to divert all of the funds to the school system. We have a lot going on in this county. The question that we need to answer, do we just want to make the status quo? Or are we willing to have the courage to look down the road and see the possibilities that this county can realize if we act and do what we're supposed to do. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Dudley.
Chris, want to address something also, and I am in favor of the public safety. And Chris, just correct me if I'm, there was a bus driver that pulled his bus off the road. He had children on it as well. And
I think it was at the start of his shift that morning when he got to the bus.
that's correct.
Started having
And
chest pains.
with that, he was having chest pains. He called his wife. They called 911, and how long? 45 minutes?
45 minutes for the ambulance got
To get there,
Yeah.
and he died.
He died.
Simply because there's a lack of service, and we absolutely need it as much as we need the sheriff's department, as much as we need the fire department. We've got to have this for our public safety, and honestly, I'm glad we wasn't sued. That's where I'm at. So I just wanted to be certain. I know the story, and I think that's where we should be. We should be giving some attention to the four positions of public safety. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
May I just make a comment? Okay. So I go to the FRC meetings, I listen. They talk about the Northeast Quadrant being an area that's difficult to serve. You have the interlocal agreement with North Halifax. That makes us dependent on a neighboring county whose priority is to their county first. So looking at the operation, looking at this as a business operation, the benefit of this, there's a cost. This is the most costly position. Obviously, we're not going to sugarcoat that. But the benefit is now you get ambulance added to the first responder.
That's right.
And I've interviewed Mr. Slimp. I've talked to the volunteer chiefs, talked to Mr. Key to think a lot about this. This benefits not just that immediate 640 area, which doesn't have a tremendous amount of calls. Right now, an ambulance to go to that area is a 20 to 30 minute ride from Gretna or Chatham.
Mm-hmm.
To your point.
Yes, sir.
That even if it's only one life, that's to me a standard we have to consider. I've talked to Mr. Slimp and interviewed him. This ambulance would be a backup to the Hurt and Gretna volunteers as well. So it wouldn't just be a standalone sitting there. It would also be a backup to them as well. It would support the whole volunteer system, not just sitting in that one area, all the way up to the northern boundary, all the way down to Java. They'd also do fire call backup in your district.
Yes, sir.
And they're all trained fire EMT. They're fire EMT. They're not just EMT. So they would respond to fire calls as well. Okay. Also, I heard there's an Elkhorn Lake camp there. It gets a large seasonal increase in folks that needs support. And something about Laurel Grove he mentioned that needs support. To me, this is the volunteer and the paid is a one system. This is a supportive system to the volunteer and strengthens the whole system. It's not just a standalone benefit. So that's the point I would like to make. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Vanderhat.
Any other questions about specific positions? I think we went from here to the great discussion and then back here. So are we done with
Yes.
the positions?
I don't have anything else.
So I guess the next question would be, by Friday, Stuart needs to present you all with a budget. Now, we have a budget at 59 cents. But is that a budget that you want to advertise? Now, you can advertise a budget and not go with it.
Mm-hmm.
You can go up from whatever you advertise. That's the important thing. You can advertise a budget as long as you come down, but you cannot add to it. I mean, that's your, And what we would need from you all, so that budget will come to you as a proposal, hopefully Friday. Hopefully by then we'll have numbers. I'm getting emails regular that we got some personal property. They're working hard to get us those numbers. And then I should have schools to work those figures out. So hopefully over the weekend you'll have a proposal, and then of course Stuart will make his presentation on the 12th, which is next Tuesday. And what we would need from you all is a decision about advertising that budget. And so we will have 3 public hearings when the public hearings are held. One for your tax rate. You're going to have one for your school budget, and then one for the county budget in whole. And then you all will come back the following week. That's when you would adopt your budget. So, like I said, typically anymore, we like to get that as tight as possible, so you're really not making a lot of changes, but you certainly can. It's nothing that says that it has to stay at what you advertise. So that's kind of where we're at.
Mr. Bowman.
Mr. Chairman, I got a couple of things I want to ask Kim, if you don't mind. On the capital budget, under the voting equipment purchase, $375,000, and it's listed as $187,005 will be cut. Why is that?
The thought was that she can probably find some funding. That's just year one. And it was some thought that she could probably find some funding either from grants or maybe some money from the state. So, and that's going to be I keep hitting the wrong button. That is something that's just going to continue over a 2-year period, as opposed to, she's not going to buy all that equipment in 1 year. So that was the premise for that.
I was thinking that she had to purchase this because a lot of those are time sensitive. You have to have them all or nothing at one time. So, okay, that's good. So on the bookmobile purchase, $100,000, who's going to pursue the grants?
So that would be Rhonda Griffin. She's the library director there.
Okay.
And so she will be pursuing other avenues of funding. She raises a lot of funds. They did a lot of fundraising for the Gretna Library project, and they were very successful at that. So we even got some state funding from our legislature for that. And so she's very aware of how to go about doing that.
Okay.
I think that bookmobile is somewhere around $400,000. We may have another option that we're looking at, that this may go away entirely. And we will let you all know as we get further along about that. So,
another question, just on that same vein, grants. Does the county have a grant writer anymore?
no, the grants are actually written in the departments that need those. Like Matt Rowe typically does the ones for economic development.
Okay.
Billy Cheney does those for the sheriff's office. Finance has a position that reconciles the grants and does all the grant reporting.
Okay. All right. So on the long term, I'm going to this, and I know you can't see it, but these charts right here.
Uh-huh.
So when I'm looking at these charts, I'm looking at the long-term capital needs, and it goes out to 20, and of course it's so small I can't quite read it, but I think 2031.
Yes.
It shows the decrease of that. I would recommend that you have another chart and factor in everything above this chart here, where the projected capital outlays are, for instance, the county facility improvements, the broadband, the dam project, jail, courthouse, and recreation.
And we do have one of those charts, and I'll be glad to make sure that's in Stuart's presentation.
Yeah, I would like
and
to see.
And it'll show you.
Yeah, because it doesn't just go to zero in 2031.
Correct. This is just our existing debt, just to show what we could put into a debt reserve.
Right.
But we do have a chart that compiles all that together with
Okay,
the debt
good.
coming
Yeah,
on.
I would like to see that. Also, on the COLA, cost
Yes.
of living, I would recommend 2% versus a 3%, okay, across the board, because in December, because that composite index, doesn't that get reevaluated again, where staff would be included in whatever the state comes in and says?
It's something that we would look at, whatever, usually whatever the state does, we not necessarily mirror the state. We usually set ours before the state.
Okay.
We always look at the Bureau of Labor and Statistics to get what the CPI is,
Sure.
which is where that 3% came from. Actually, what was available to me when we started working on the budget was November. I didn't have December. November was at 3.4. So I just, for, simplicity's sake, just put in the 3%.
Okay.
So that's where that came from. But yes, we should have information from the compensation board when we do have a state budget that says what they are recommending for constitutionals.
Okay. All right, so, and I have one comment, and then I'm going to give you my recommendations, Mr. Chair, if you'll bear with me for just a moment. In the current budget message, under the schools, Pennsylvania County Schools, the one we're currently operating on, and I kind of read this twice when I saw it. The board last year gave $1 million additional dollars to the schools for a 5% cost of living adjustment for their entire staff. It's the intent of the board, and I'm reading directly out of here, that this increase be given to all PCS staff, so there is no disparity between PCS staff increases and Pennsylvania County staff increases. And this is what caught my eye. In the event this funding is not used for this purpose, any portion will be returned to the general fund. So do you expect to get any money back from the schools after we give them $1 million for salary increases? Yeah, me either. I don't expect that. So I don't know why that was put in there. So in closing from me, my recommendation is schedule a semi-annual budget review in November 24 and provide a status update to the Board of Supervisors at the December regular meeting as to where we stand with our 6-month budget. I would request the Commissioner of Revenue make a presentation to the Board of Supervisors, which in turn will be aired for the public, to outline the programs that are available for those households that will have difficulty paying their taxes. Recommend this at the March and April meeting. The more publicity we get out there, the more the public will be able to see this and take advantage of it. We've got to have that in place so those folks will be able to do that. I would say set the tax rate at 57 cents per 100. That's always been my go-to there, and I think we can achieve that. Schedule a retreat, and this is the last one. I've been told we don't have enough time to do this, but I beg to differ. Schedule a retreat before the end of March to discuss capital projects, which we've gone over, the sheriff's long-range plans, fire and EMS long-range plans, the school division plans, et cetera, in order to prioritize the capital projects and plan for the future. These things just on a piece of paper are not priorities. If we don't get behind them and start putting funds to them, they'll never happen, because every year it'll get, this one will jump, this one will fall off. We need to make sure that we put the priorities in place and stay with them. And I like the idea of taking some funding, putting it aside for these projects for future. Okay? Mr. Chairman, that's all I've got. Thank you.
All right. Let me ask one quick question,
Okay.
and I don't know, but are you aware of any upcoming incentive obligations we're going to have to cover as far as economic development?
We have budgeted as best we can for incentives, and the way Matt structures those deals, usually you don't pay incentives out until the company meets performance.
Gotcha.
And they have to continue to meet performance in order to get future incentives.
Yep.
And so sometimes you can give an incentive this time, but maybe next time they didn't meet their benchmark. But I think currently we do have sufficient funds to kind of cover things, but that can always change. And what we do mostly is we do tax rebates a lot, and we do jobs grants, and we do those as well. And if you know, and maybe for the benefit of your new people, anything that we land jointly with the city of Danville, we not only have to, if it's located in the county, we have to pay our share of the incentive, and so does the city of Danville. But we have to share any revenues that come off of that. So for a while, we really don't have the benefit of all of that revenue, or never will once all incentives have been paid out, because we do have to share that revenue with the city. In the case of Stanton River, when SR Plastics is up and running and that kind of thing, we have to share. When
That's right.
we have to share those revenues as well with the
That's right.
city, and HURT is also a partner. So.
Sure.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Van der Hyde.
Okay.
Thank you, Kimmy V. Good job.
Thank you.
All right, matters from the committee, Mr. Height.
Mr. Chairman. If we go with the 59-cent rate, do you anticipate, I know you don't have a crystal ball, do you anticipate us having to come back next year or the year after and ask for more?
That remains to be seen, but, when we started back in 2018, we had a 4-year plan that we weren't going to raise tax. And I will tell you, before the ink dried on that budget, at least 2 to 3 major things occurred that we had no way of anticipating. So I can't say with 100% certainty that we wouldn't be back. The plan would be not to come back if at all possible. Right. And we will certainly look at other avenues to fund things. I mean, we do that anyway. That would be the plan. But for certain, if you cut yourself really short this year, or you take things out that are in there now, they're going to come back. As you can tell, a lot of people request things for years. In fact, I will tell you this little trivia bit, because I've been here so long. The 911 dispatchers, 2 part-times to full-times, that has been requested since Jimmy Davis was here. And that was 2 public safety directors ago, and it's never been funded. Amen?
Can I get an
So, we try our best to keep it as level as possible, but, when you get to the point where you're not raising sufficient revenues, then your services will falter. And see, with us, because we haven't done a lot with our capital, that's why you see such a big influx. And we never know what's going to happen with schools. And I mean, the last 2 to 3 years, we've had hefty increases to contribution to schools, and we get nowhere because the formula changes. Yeah. And they're looking to completely change the formula, which we've heard will really not behoove us here. So I don't know what that means. It's scary. But I feel good at the 59-cent rate, and like I said, it's not really over, until that dust settles. Right. But it's going to be tough because, even at Mr. Bowman's request, that's $1.2 million. We got to cut another $1.2 million to get to that. Yeah. Now, that's not to say, if that's what you wanted, we would do our best to do that. But then for sure, next year is going to be tough. Yeah. And the next year after that, because then you're always going to be behind the 8 ball trying to catch up.
Well, I'm under my thinking is, if we got to do something, I don't want to piecemeal it. I don't want to come up with a number this year and then we have to come back next year and ask for even more.
Rather be shot at.
Shoot me once. I don't want to go jumping in front of a second bullet, but I'm not worried about getting reelected in 2 years. Yeah. So I know we've got to have an increase. Guys, this 6 years we have not raised taxes. There's no more kicking a can. We're going to have to bite a bullet. Not everybody's going to be happy. Trust me, I've been eating a lot of Tums in the last few months. This is very stressful because I know there are people in this county
that are going to really struggle with paying their taxes. But as Mr. Bowman said, we need to get Commissioner of Revenue in here. There are programs to help those in our community. We need to make sure we get the word out there. You know, if you're disabled, if you're retired and you're truly in need, there are programs out there to help you with your taxes. We're aware. You know, my parents, when they were living, struggled. I grew up on a tobacco farm where we had to raise what we ate. We didn't have anything extra. And my dad had to save copper to pay taxes every year. You know, clean copper and pick up soda pop bottles. I remember those days. But we did what we had to do. Because the people in this county, there are services that they need. Those folks out in 640 area, they need an ambulance out there. They definitely need an ambulance in that section of the county. I mean, any EMS person you talk to in the county will tell you that is a much needed area that needs covered right now.
Yep.
So, you know, it's going to cost. We all realize that. It's not going to be easy sell, but folks, we've got to think ahead. As Mr. Tucker has said, we've got to think ahead, not just this year, but the next several years. We've got to think forward and think ahead. It's going to be tough. It's going to be some tough decisions we have to make. Are they going to be popular? No. None of us up here are probably going to get a pat on the back and say thank you if we vote for a tax increase. But we are going to have to vote for a tax increase. There's no way around that. Mr. Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Height. Mr. Whittle, anything from your end from the Finance Committee?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I do think we need to maybe put the 4 public safety people on, because I think everybody in the county deserves the same opportunity to live as the rest of us. That's it for me. So.
Absolutely. Well said. All right, Vice Chair Dudley.
No, sir, I don't have any further comments. It is vital. Mr. Whittle made a good point. I think it's fair for everybody to be served equally if they're going to be taxed equally. So let's look at it that way. Redan, Straightstone, Long Island, your area, we struggle for life-saving crew. I had some folks call me a while back about a cancer patient, and you know that's one of the things that they was really wanting is to see more life-saving crew in that area. So I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Dudley.
Thank you, sir.
Let me very quickly thank you, Ms. Van der Heide, the lady that never sleeps, does a wonderful job, and she makes my job as the chair of the Finance Committee easy. There's never been a situation where I went seeking information that she wasn't able to provide me with that, and I appreciate all your hard work. And I submit to my colleagues, not just on the Finance Committee, but the entire board. You know, Ms. Van der Heide is a numbers person, okay? She eats it, sleeps it, breathes it, okay? That's the recommendation. We have taken a look at making as many cuts as we possibly can. You know, we have an opportunity to set the tax rate, okay? I would like to see the board united, coalesce around the recommendation of 59 cents. And we've looked at it 6 ways to Sunday. She has presented to us the difference between 57 and 59 cents is something in the neighborhood of $60 annually. So that is not significant to be able to provide the constituents with the quality of services they deserve. One thing we didn't even talk about were the enterprise funds. Last year, we were able to take $2 million from enterprise fund out there and plug a hole with it $2 million. We do not have that option. And moving forward, we do not have that option. And then out there at the landfill, we're getting close to filling up one, and then it costs you money to close the landfill. Then you got to open another landfill. Okay, so I don't see a way around setting a tax rate at 59 cents. And believe you me, you're going to take heat for it. And it's very easy for the public to sit there and Monday morning quarterback your decisions. I get that. But at the end of the day, you're not making a decision for yourself. We are sensitive to the elderly that are strapped financially on fixed incomes. We're sensitive to those people that are socioeconomically depressed, that can't pay their taxes. We get that. I agree, Ms. Gord, Commissioner of Revenue, should be here to maybe give some insight. One thing we have to bear in mind, and I say this openly, we do not have the luxury of time. Time is not on our side because this budget, the rate has to be set, the budget has to be advertised, you have to have public hearings, then they have to have time to get these bills out, and I think it is only fair to the citizens that we get them out 30 days prior to, so that they not only have an opportunity to digest the bill, but they also have an opportunity to make adjustments in their budget so that they will be in a position to pay. Okay, so that's kind of where I am, and I'm not opposed to a workshop, but a workshop can have different facilitators, a myriad of topics. But as far as this budget is concerned, we kind of are under the gun to get it done. Okay, so with that, I say thank you to everyone and spirited debate. Good questions, great input. Mr. Dalton. Quickly.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Can I make a comment or two?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thinking back, I've been involved with 30-some budgets, my time of working here and being on the board too. And I've never seen one that we come out and said, we got a great year, we're going to balance the budget, and we got surplus left. It's always...
That never happens.
It never happens. Maybe one of these
because
days...
we try really hard to
maybe one of these days we'll get there, but I've never seen none in 34 or 5 years. It's always, we 3 million. I know kind of how everything operates. If we need 2, we ask for 6 and all of that. And I know we got to pay our bills. I know the budget is set to pay the bills. I know who pays the bills. Everybody in here knows who pays the bills, the citizens. And I just want to make sure that this budget is really prepared for the citizens, not the county officers, not the staff, all the wants. Are we really preparing a budget for our citizens in Pennsylvania County? I've heard numbers, $29, $60. Well, I'm going to tell you, when you want a fixed income and you suffering and you scratching for your life to pay your medical bills or buy your medicine, $60 is a whole lot to these people. If we pass the budget at 59 cents, there's still going to be, we're going to need more money another year. Now, whether we increase it, I don't know. But I've always had to live within my means. I mean, if you give me $5, I can't go out tonight and spend 10 because I won't never get ahead. I have to know how to balance my budget and be able to live, take care of my families. So I just want to make sure that we really put this budget at heart, that we are providing a good service to our citizens. I made a comment a while ago, asked Mr. Keys some questions. I surely won't knock in what we need to do at 640. I was making a suggestion if it's some kind of way that we can provide good service and be able to cut the numbers down a little bit, not take away nobody's service. I mean, they've been running like that for so many years, and I was just thinking, well, maybe we can do it a little bit longer. I mean, we set it at 59 cents. We have raised our tax rate 17 cents. Ms. Vanderhyde just said 42 is neutral, right? Well, 17 and 42 is 59. I mean, I'm kind of like Mr. Bowman. I like to see it down by 50, but I know we can't do that. But maybe we could go 57 or 58, do something. I mean, like I said, the pennies add up when people are struggling. So I would like to, I mean, if we need to advertise at 59, I know it's not set in stone, and we can go back and set it down. But we need to look at every avenue that we can look at to provide a good service and save us taxpayers. Because, yeah, it's been 6 years, but they have never had a hit of 48 or 50% increase. I mean, it's going to be hard to digest that. I mean, if you're paying $1,000 and you got to start paying $1,500 or whatever it is, it's going to be tough. So I just want to make sure we're doing the right thing for the people that takes care of everybody here in the county, and that's our citizens. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Dalton. And I do concur, and I believe that, I have a spirit of trust, and that's why I sing Ms. Vanderhyde's praises and her accolades, is the fact that, she looks at every possibility, every avenue, not only to cut expenses, but also she calls it jiggering, and I call it finagling. She looks at every opportunity in terms of how we appropriate dollars to even attract grant money, that sort of thing. So, I trust that she is working primarily on behalf not only of the county, but also on behalf of the board to kind of make your job as effortless as possible so that you don't get as much feedback from the community in terms of, well, we're just spending your money frivolously. And I don't believe that that is the case. And Mr. Dalton, we certainly recognize and appreciate what you're saying. I grew up on a tobacco farm as well, so I know the value of a dollar. I know what it means to work. So we certainly appreciate anyone else out there that's not only working but on a fixed income. So we're sensitive to all of that. Anything else? If nothing else, we stand adjourned.